Hey, Stephen in Montreal, my hometown, my real hometown. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to see you, Mark. You can come on back. It's really hot in LA, I'm told.
Yeah, it's fiery hot, unfortunately, but I know winter's coming to Montreal, and so that won't necessarily work for me. But for a visit,
oh, come on.
For a visit,
I'm wearing my fall clothes already. We're going to go down to 0 tonight, actually.
Yeah, well, tell me what it's like. I don't miss that. I do miss Montreal. I do miss you and the family and your beautiful hospitality. I do miss that for sure. And but welcome to the Leaders Who Care series. It wouldn't be a Leaders Who Care series if the chief peacemaker of a million peacemakers wasn't on it, right?
I'm honored, Mark.
Yeah, man. So let's start this way. Can you kind of formally introduce yourself, a little bit about your background, because I know between you and me we can talk forever, but a little bit of your background and then we'll chat.
Sure. So I am Steve Hecht, Chief Executive Peacemaker, Million Peacemakers. I come from a traditional business background, about 30 years in private and public business before getting into the nonprofit or co-founding this nonprofit 6 years ago. Traditional business education, BCom and MBA, and went into a family business. And I experienced a lot of conflict in that family business. I was third generation. And it got to the point where it was not very good for our family, not very good for our business. And I didn't really have the tools to deal with conflict in a constructive way. I kind of dealt with it the way my father and his brothers dealt with it, and probably the way the generations before it dealt with it. And eventually we sold that business. And you know, my uncle passed away a few years later, and my father was not invited to his deathbed due to a conflict that they didn't resolve years earlier. And I realized that I didn't want that for my kids. I've got four kids of my own. And in my own personal life, I've been married now 3 times. I'm happily married to an incredible person, Naomi, for about 11 years now, just over 11 years. But we model behavior for our next generations. And I wanted to be modeling positive behavior. So I left the business world when or traditional business world. We have a nonprofit business. I left it about 6 years ago when I came across through the work I was doing in a group called YPO, a way of resolving conflict constructively, be it inner conflict, external conflict, identity-based conflicts. And to me, I saw it as a gift to the world I needed to share.
Yeah, and it's turned into a tremendous thing. And, you know, I ask people a lot, and people talk a lot about, you know, what their why is, which I think is super important. But in some ways, I like to ask it a different way. And you've kind of touched on it, but why do you do what you do now?
Well, I did touch on it, and I have a few whys, but one of them is to be a better role model to my kids, right. So they could see that they could live a life of significance, of impact, and their reason for being is more than just making money, for bringing home a paycheck. They can really make an impact and leave the world better than they left it, than they arrived in it. And that, to me, really the significance and why I get up in the morning. It's not for the money anymore. I'm very fortunate that that's not my prime motivator, and I'm in that situation. I get up in the morning because I, again, see this as a gift to the world that I could share. And if we could keep one family together, because they have these tools of resolving conflict called Nonflict in a constructive way, if we could keep one business together, one family business together, or keep someone from using perhaps violence to deal with conflict, then to me it's all worthwhile.
Yeah, no, not to mention you get up in the morning to take a jump in the lake also every morning, right?
Up until a few weeks ago, yes.
Soon maybe skating on the lake, who knows?
It will be that way in a few months, yeah.
So let me just backtrack a little bit. It's taken decades for corporate leaders to align, to realize that aligning their brands with social impact, doing something in addition to philanthropy to make a difference that there's actually good for business. Not to mention it's good and almost necessary now to attract the best people because they only want to go someplace where they will get paid, but also have purpose, etc. So you've been engaged in bringing people together forever, so at least as long as I've known you and before, whether it's business or with Million Peacemakers or just in general for good causes. And now, probably finding a way to solve the thing that could bring the biggest foundation to solving all other stuff that's out there with Nonflict. Can you, it's a little bit of a push question that I'd like to give you a chance, a little more substance on it. What do you think really differentiates you as one of the leaders who care?
Well, coming from a business background and the pragmatism, thinking about the bottom line, thinking about impact and how we could contribute and create value, combined with a vision and a purpose which people could identify with. And nothing is impossible. So I really embrace ideas from everyone. And we have a very diverse team, as you know, people of different ages, male, female, different races, religions. And the best ideas come from just putting out the ask, and this is where we go and ask people, how can we get there? You were there in the room where one of the younger people had an idea to have priests, for example, share Nonflict with couples about to get married. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a great idea. And I put in my calendar then to meet the Pope on October the 15th, because I had to be in London October the 16th, 2-hour flight. And of course, being a Canadian Jew, what do I know about meeting the Pope? But it was in my calendar. And then I took action to make it into a reality. And as you know, I then last March spoke at an event called Religions and the SDGs on how religious leaders can make an impact using Nonflict to achieve any of the Sustainable Development Goals. And we got to share the Spanish version of Nonflict with the Pope. So, and then invited a month later to speak to a Catholic working group on peace and nonviolence strategy for the Pope. So maybe I'm a little different in that I believe and I allow other people to dream big, and we take action to achieve that.
Yeah, well, you know what they say. One of the things for a leader is to be able to get followers. Otherwise, what are you leading, basically? And I followed because I was all excited about how you talked about this, and a lot of people have followed. And a lot of people say, you talk about peace and world peace and this and that. It's like never going to happen. But you keep leading in that way, and I'm in all the way too, because that's what a leader does, and you're doing it to solve a big issue. And it's a good segue, I guess. It reminds me of my grandparents, who, one of my influences was my grandfather. And long story short, when we'd go walks as a little kid, he'd always say hi and smile to everybody. And I asked him, how do you know all these people? He says, I don't know most of those people, but when I smile, they smile back. And some of them even talk to me and everything. And I learned so much just from that type of thing. And the other thing they say, though, with the Kiev accent is, as long as you have your health, that's the most important thing. And, they really meant it. It wasn't like now where you're branding everything and it's a slogan. They meant it, as you would know, because of all that they've gone through, and they know that is the most important thing. So, not to make a question too long, we talked about this before, we got Mother Nature or whoever putting the perfect storm together, like everything's happening at the same time. Technology is still speeding along. We have the tipping point, which is inevitably going to happen with social justice and racism. Is there like an awakening that many of us are having because we have more time to think about what's really important? And What's your thoughts on how that's going to change our awareness when we're at work, when we're at play, and in our community?
Wow, what a question.
Yeah.
We are at a tipping point, and as I think you know, the Chinese symbol for crisis is the same one as opportunity. And my philosophy has always been the larger the crisis, the larger the opportunity. It's just maybe more challenging to find that. And I think there's really a lot of opportunity here with this crisis. And Mother Nature is telling us that that we were pushing too far and we weren't respecting Mother Nature. And by the way, feeling disrespected is the source of most conflicts out there. We weren't respecting each other. We weren't respecting Mother Nature. We weren't respecting the inhabitants of the earth. And now we have to change. And it starts with respecting ourselves and our neighbors, our employees, our customers, our communities, and the globe. And if we could learn to live in peace with ourselves and our neighbors, our life will be so much more fulfilling. We'll be happier. We'll have a lot less stress or negative stress. And I think the world will be a much better place. How we define our tribe? We're tribal. We could define our tribe as our little bubble, and we're all in bubbles now, but we are affected by what's going on everywhere in the world, right? What's happening in China, what's happening in Asia, we're all, or in India, or wherever, we're all impacted by that. So it's going to be, we have a decision, we have a choice to make. Is it me against the world, or is it me and the world? And I think if we could choose me and the world, we're all in this boat together. We need to cooperate and collaborate and co-create. Then we'll have a much better life and world ahead for ourselves, our children, our grandchildren. And we all have that in common. I've been around the world sharing Nonflict, and no matter where you go, people want the same thing. When you take the time to listen and understand each other, we all want to feel respected, feel safe, and have hope for the future for ourselves, our children, and grandchildren.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the words I've disliked, if not hated the most in English dictionary is the word tolerate. I know there's a lot of places where the intent is right for the word tolerate, but I never thought I ever wanted to be tolerated by anybody. And rather, to your point, I think the thing that has been shown that people want the most, that fills their heart and soul, is belonging. And I think that's what you're talking to. Instead of fighting the world, why don't we just belong together? Doesn't mean you have to love the person to death, every single person, but you're right. Everybody just wants peace, and a good life, and to belong, right? To belong to a community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we use the word embrace a lot. Embrace conflict, because you need conflict. You need constructive ways of dealing with conflict for innovation and growth. Conflict is just two or more different perspectives coming in contact with each other. By definition, it's neither positive or negative, but how we deal with it is either going to be constructive or destructive. And what we do is give people tools to deal with it constructively.
Yeah, that's what I still love about it, obviously, because it applies in every community. It applies in your corporate community. It applies in your family at home. It applies everywhere. And, growing up and even in corporate, you run into a lot of conflict. And when we first met, I love and fortunate enough to have 2 of my 3 kids do Nonflict with you at your home. And I joked around saying, I found out all the other conflicts they had with me that we had to resolve. It just gives, I just saw how it is the foundation for being able to solve almost everything else. How can you solve anything? Not necessarily to the point of total agreement, but to the point of at least people feel heard to come to a solution, right?
Yep. Yeah, we all want to feel listened to. And listening is such a simple thing that anyone can do right away. I taught active listening and organizational behavior at McGill as a student course back, I think in 78, 79. But taking the time to look in someone's eyes, which we could do on Zoom or Google Meet or however today with our technology, take the time to look in someone's eyes and really listen to them. And you don't have to agree with the other person for them to feel respected and listened to. But often we're interrupting and saying, you're wrong, before they even finish.
Yeah, no, it's a bad habit, and about you have to have a winner and a loser versus what we call an omni-win type of thing. I'd like to get your opinion, on what business leaders who care, what their role is, what their responsibility can be for not just financial well-being, but the physical and mental well-being of their employees. And I say that in respect to their employees are a community. I mean, it's not like you separate the corporations here and the communities there. That is the community. So with your experiences, what role do you think corporate leaders can play to address the well-being of their people, but all three well-beings?
Such an important point today, and the mental well-being is a huge issue, especially when people aren't feeling safe, when they're frightened. Leaders, it's our role to be there, to be consistent with our guiding principles, our corporate values, not to change them just because it's an emergency, to share and to really listen and to show that we care. And and this is your point, because people are only going to care for leaders if they feel cared for.
Right.
If you feel you're just a cog and you're not important, then are you really going to be committed to that company? Are you going to be working from home the hours that you might be working without someone watching you if you feel the boss doesn't care about you, right, the leader doesn't really care? And culture starts at the top. Leaders are setting the example for their staff, how they deal with or embrace conflict, either is going to be followed throughout the organization. And we need everyone on board for innovation and growth, especially at this time. So leaders are certainly setting the tone and are necessary to be the role models for their communities.
And don't you think
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and don't you think then that mom or dad, amazingly, it's just going to happen, goes home and takes that into the home, which then is in the community?
Yes. And for better or worse.
Right.
For better or worse. So they're going to take the lessons they're learning at work and the leadership they're learning, and they'll either be happy or stressed when they come home, and vice versa. If in your home you are having a lot of negative conflict and you don't have the tools to deal with it constructively, you're probably going to take that bad mood with you to work.
Yeah,
or that stress with you to work. Yeah,
and it's right on the money. I had an interesting conversation with an executive about how he was fortunate. He grew up in an entrepreneurial family, so they would talk about stuff like that. But there's a lot of people that don't grow up in entrepreneurial families. There's a lot of people that just grow up in surviving families, financial. And he said, if we could care and show the role modeling of caring, and we want to make a difference, what he found was, and I get this 100% in this whole Leaders Who Care theme, is that the person goes home from work, not like disgruntled and whatnot, has his beer, goes sits on the couch and is pissed off about everything. He goes home or she goes home and starts talking about what they achieved at work, what the company people are doing to make a difference in the community. And there's like interesting conversation going on home, and the kids feel it as well as see it. So I think that's the point you're making.
The kids feel it and see it, and their neighbors do. I mean, if you really respect your company and its culture and its leadership, you're going to share that with everyone, and vice versa.
Absolutely, and not necessarily even just verbally, just by the energy that comes from it. I compare a lot of things to sports. The player that has a coach yell at the referee for him, even though he might not win that call, will do anything for that coach because the coach cares about him. So it works there too. Last question on this part, pretend I'm a graduate, high school graduate, college, doesn't matter. my girlfriend's ticked off at me because we don't have a prom, even though it's not my fault, and this and that and the other, and the economy's here, we got COVID. And I come to you and I say, with all this going on, what do I do? What next? What do you tell me?
Congratulations. Congratulations on your achievement. You graduated college. You're clearly a doer and a thinker. You've achieved something you should be proud of. No one's ever going to take that education away from you, no matter what the economy is. It's something you can be proud of for the rest of your life. And now you're continuing the journey of learning, and learning doesn't stop when you get that diploma. I hope to learn, and I try to learn something every day from other people or from reading. So don't think just because you got that diploma, it's over. You don't know everything yet, nor do I, nor does anybody. And that's what makes life really, really interesting. And then now show that you could be a doer. The leaders today, especially of the virtual world, aren't going to be the loudest people or the extroverts that might have been more likely to rise before. But the leaders today they're finding online are the ones who are doing, who are keeping their commitments. Keep your commitments. Help other people meet their commitments. Be of value, be of service leadership. And you're going to go far, and you're going to really enjoy the journey. So choose a company that has a purpose that's aligned with yours, an organization, or start one, or work with people that you respect and can learn from, and embrace that.
Man, I feel better already. Thanks.
Congratulations.
That was a great answer.
Call me anytime.
Okay, I will. Terrific answer. Thank you so much for participating. There is no doubt, and I've told you this before, that you are definitely one of the true leaders who care, and keep making a difference.
Thank you, Mark, and you are too. And it's an honor to have you on our board as a really wonderful contributor and leader who cares.
Thank you, man. Take care.
Bye-bye.